Okay, so I've been looking forward to sharing today. Um, the 7 habits has been so much a part of my life, and it has just simplified my life. And I'm really very, very grateful to Stephen Covey for that. Okay, last week I introduced the 7 habits of highly effective people, and I said that character is the 90% of the iceberg that is you, where the seeds of greatness are sown and grown. Okay, it's character. Okay. And the philosopher Seneca said that acquiring new habits leads to a fundamental change of character. You quoted the saying, sow a thought and you reap an action, sow an action and you reap a habit, sow a habit and you reap a character, sow a character and you reap a destiny. Your whole life depends on the habits that you have. So let's recall the 7 habits of highly effective people. Habit 1 was to be proactive. Habit 2, begin with the end in mind. Habit 3, put first things first. Habit 4, think win-win. Habit 5, seek first to understand, then to be understood. Habit 6, synergize. And habit 7, sharpen the saw. These habits are the steps in what Stephen Covey calls the maturity continuum, where you progress from dependence to independence to interdependence. Okay. So let's look at habit 1, be proactive. Why did Stephen Covey make this the first of the 7 habits? Because it's a foundation of being a highly effective person, and all the other habits depend on it. If habit 1 is present, you can cultivate all the other 6. If it's not present, you will not cultivate the other 6. It is that fundamental. Now, being proactive means that your life is the product of your values, not your feelings. So we saw how important it is to know your values and your principles. Okay, your life is the product of your values, not your feelings. It is the product of your decisions, not your conditions. The opposite of being proactive is to be reactive. When you're reactive, then your life is a function of your feelings, your moods, your impulses, and other people's treatment of you. And so, we have heard many people say, you make me this, you make me that, you make me sad, you make me angry. Okay. Your life is a function of other people's treatment. That is a reactive behavior. The underlying principle of habit 1 is responsibility, which is the ability to respond. Proactivity is the capacity and the desire to subordinate impulses, moods, feelings, conditions to values based on principles. Okay, so it acknowledges that we have impulses, we have moods, we have feelings, but we develop the capacity and that desire to subordinate these impulses to our values. Now, it seems very restrictive, having to control ourselves. On the contrary, habit 1 is about freedom. Okay. Rather than simply reacting to our environment, we can be proactive and choose how we respond to stimulus. So here, okay, we've got response and stimulus. Okay, when it's close together, the moment we get we're stimulated by something, we respond immediately. But actually, the space between stimulus and response, there is a space. Okay, and in that space lies our freedom and our power to choose. Okay. So we really can. It's about freedom. Okay. Now, this word proactive seems very chim, For example, Asia Works graduates, we use other vocabulary, and maybe it will help you understand. We say it's about taking responsibility. It's about initiating things. We say, I'm the source. Okay. We say, I create. When we do grounding, we say, what do you want to create? Because it is in your control to create whatever that you want. Remember, Habit 1 is the first habit of a beginner, starting from dependence. So as a, as a beginner, I'm a white belt. I know nothing. And that's why we say leaders are learners, because they realize they don't know anything, act like they don't know anything, and they're willing to learn. And at the other level, mastery, we say mastery is wearing the white belt all the time, because a master is continually learning. Okay. Now, I want to talk a bit about this this thing called the circle of influence. So if you look at the personality type, the communication types, I'm a controller, okay? But I must control what I can control. So if you imagine a circle within a circle, okay? The inner circle is your circle of influence, and the outer circle is your circle of concern. There are many things which you're concerned about which you cannot influence. Yet there are many things which you are concerned about which you can influence. So reactive people focus on their circle of concern. Proactive people focus on their circle of influence. And as you be more proactive, you actually increase your circle of influence. Okay, so control what you can control. Don't control what you can't control, which is other people's behaviors. Now, if you believe you are the source, okay, and let's say you are the tree of life as an analogy, your resilience, okay, the resilience of you, the tree, are your deep roots and then your solid trunk. If your resilience depends on your deep roots and your solid trunk, then your primary focus must be on yourself. Okay? Don't get sidetracked with changing others, especially your upline, your coach, your mother, your father, your boss. Yeah, sure, life would be better if they improve, but your primary focus must be on yourself. Okay, so focus on your circle of influence, yourself primarily. Proactive people recognize that they are responsible, able to respond. They don't blame genetics, they don't blame circumstances, conditions, or conditioning. Conditioning meaning your environment, how you were brought up, your parents, for their behavior. Proactive people know that they choose their behavior. Reactive people, on the other hand, are often affected by their physical environment. They find external sources to blame for their behavior. And that's true. For me, if it's raining, the weather is bad, I always before leaders gathering, I'll ask, how's the weather? Yeah, if I can ignore that, okay, and have the view of some people that wet weather is great, or I just don't let it affect me. That is better. My language or your language is a good indicator of how you see yourself. A proactive person uses proactive language. I can, I will, I prefer. A reactive person uses reactive language. I can't, I have to, if only. Okay. We all have the inner power to choose how we feel and how we react to the various circumstances and instances in our lives. Stephen Covey says this. Your life doesn't just happen. Whether you know it or not, it is carefully designed by you. The choices, after all, are yours. You choose happiness, you choose sadness. You choose decisiveness, you choose ambivalence. You choose success, you choose failure. You choose courage, you choose fear. Just remember that every moment, every situation provides a new choice. And in doing so, he says, it gives you a perfect opportunity to do things differently, to produce more positive results. In his book, he talks a lot about Viktor Frankl, who wrote the book Man's Search for Meaning. I urge you to read that book. Recently our uplines have mentioned that book. Viktor Frankl said, everything can be taken from a man but one thing, the last of the human freedoms, and that is to choose one's attitude in any given set of circumstances, to choose one's own way. And of course, we're talking about choosing a way that is aligned to your values and your principles. You're not choosing your own way just to throw a tantrum or lose your temper. Okay? But Willing to be 100% responsible is unreasonable, because we know that the saying, it says it takes two hands to clap. What about the other party? But I think this is the secret of Anthony Robbins' CANI, CANI, continuous and never-ending improvement. Because you move from just good enough, let's say 51 marks, just pass. You move on to 80 marks. You move on to 95 marks. You move on to 99 marks. And you move on to 100%. And that really is the secret of how we move from mediocrity to mastery. Because as a master, not only do you attract more trust, more people who will come to you, but you are able to help more people. Being willing to be 100%, requires a paradigm shift. And, there's this saying, the way we see the problem is the problem. The way we see the problem is the problem. If you have a problem, the actual problem is that you are looking at it as a problem. But it could be something else, like as an opportunity. The saying, when it rains lemons, make lemonade. I think this is the practice of what I say about seeing the cup as half full and not half empty. You just need a paradigm shift. So I'm going to end with a story, and this story actually comes from Stephen Covey himself, and I've titled this, Carry Your Own Weather. It's not what people do to us that hurts us. It's our chosen response to what they do that hurts us. As Gandhi put it, they cannot take away our self-respect if we do not give it to them. We must simply never build our emotional life around the weaknesses of other people. Otherwise, we give them permission to continue to mess up our lives. We give our future away. Several years ago, I was making a presentation on this subject of proactivity. And a woman stood up in the middle of my speech and started to give a speech on her own spontaneously. She was filled with explosive learning and excitement. You could see it in her eyes, her gestures, her body language. And then she sensed the inappropriateness of what she was doing. She sat back down. I could hardly wait until the break to talk to her. What happened to you? I asked. She shared her story. She said, I'm the full-time nurse to an extremely miserable man. He doesn't even acknowledge me, let alone show me any form of appreciation. She went on to explain that this elderly man entrusted to her care was absolutely miserable and took his misery out on her. She was becoming more and more depressed and hated the thought of going to work each day and facing this irritable man. All of the other nurses felt the same way. They talked even of his demise, wished for it, hoped for it, while they were taking care of him. Then she said something to me. For you to stand up there and suggest that I am choosing to be miserable was almost too much. But then listening to you, I suddenly realized that I do choose to be miserable. Before, I believed I didn't choose it. He made me. But then I realized how dependent I am. I had given my power over myself to him and his miserable behavior. As I thought about what you were saying, she said, I realized I had the power to choose, and I felt that I had been let out of prison. That's why I stood up. I could not contain myself. I just can't tell you what that means. This feeling of freedom is almost overwhelming. We have the freedom and the power to choose, to create our own weather each day. As the Archbishop and Emmy Award-winning television presenter Fulton J. Sheen once said, each of us makes his own weather, determines the color of the skies in the emotional universe which he inhabits. The last few months for us, for the whole world, have given us a concentration at camp experience, a taste of Viktor Frankl's unplanned unpleasantness. We can carry our own weather in these difficult times the world is going through. We can't control the coronavirus or the economy or the healthcare system, but there's still so much we can do. We can do our part to follow the guidelines provided by the government and others. And we can use this time to do so many good things for ourselves, for our business, our loved ones, and others we previously have always wanted to but didn't have the time. This Circuit breaker time has been a great opportunity to learn and practice the foundational habit of highly effective people. Proactive. Be proactive.